Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to PharSide Pholios, where we're celebrating all things books and all things authors in this month of March, which is National Reading Month and National Literacy Month, with a special series of author interviews, along with our daily book posts that celebrate all things reading, all things books, and all things authors that you'll see on our Facebook page. So today we are so honored to have special guest with us, Myles Wagner. Um, he is a grand adventurer. I mean, long. He likes to safeguard the privacy of his family, and so he's opted for the use of a pen name. All right.
That's right.
And a proud parent of three amazing children, and embrace the tranquility of country living and juggling full-time work, um, and they find joy, and he finds joy in helping others. And the Dragon's Promise saga was written at a late night, very late night, and early mornings, and just a labor of love. And so we're going to dive into that wonderful work. He's a child of the 80s, so he had a fascination for castles that knew no bounds. So it makes sense that we're coming with a title called Castlestone. All right. And so interested in worlds and enchantment of Harry Potter, and which unfolded in those later years. And so he's got a passion for reading, and so it shows in his writing. Academic background is in the sciences. So you'll see that mark in his work, the connections, and how he established that working magic system within the saga, and drew inspiration from math, from chemistry, and from physics. So all of those connected together helped establish that magical world that we are privileged to read about in this series as it unfolds, with the fabric of magic and a little bit of humor in there. And, I think is something that, his colleagues in the different fields of the math and science will appreciate, most definitely appreciate. Um, Traveled across the UK, and you can't travel across the UK without indulging and exploring the castles, and all of like the land, and taking in the experience of time and space that contribute to this fantastic world that has been created by Myles. So welcome to the far side, Myles Wagner.
Oh, thank you, Monica, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so we are talking about this um, first book in the series, Castlestone Ascension, the Dragon's Promise. And it opens up with this line: the castle walls shook, cries of shock and terror surrounded him. How does that opening sentence kind of set a scene for what may be coming within that story?
So I'd like to start out the story with an action sequence, and it really is the crucial moment where the young protagonist, he awakens to his power, and he survives a dragon attack, the first one in centuries. So a lot of mystery is built into why the attack, why now, why this boy, how did he get powers? So that sets up the stage for the series.
And okay, so we see this, dragon attack, and there's destruction of Skyview, is like tower kind of thing. And it's very movie like, where you like, okay, you can hear the screams of people as they're running for cover, and you know the things crumbling down, and wings. You could hear the wings of the dragon flapping. So you create that kind of visual. Your words create a beautiful visual of what is happening. And so, how does kind of that moment where this your main character, Brecken, finds himself, how does that kind of shape um, his kind of just choices and decisions and kind of his view of things?
For him, it's trial by fire. So Skyview Tower is the place where all the master crafters live and practice. It's kind of like the research labs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the heart and the control center of the city. So Brecken finds himself up there for the first time in his life. He's by a chance occurrence. He was dropping off some papers for somebody that he bumped into, and but wrong place, wrong time, or the right place, right time for him. So
Mm-hmm.
when he finds himself trapped up in the tower with the other crafters, there is no escape. All the escapes have been blocked off, and he comes face to face with this ginormous dragon. I think in the book I say it's the size of mountains peering in at him. And at some point, he makes a conscious decision that he doesn't want to die a coward. And he decides to somehow, face it like a man. And he gets to his feet and he tries to draw the attention of the dragon away from the others. And at that moment, something weird happens. And he kind of he builds this strange connection to a dark entity, and he is infused with power, and it kind of sets up for the rest of the book where he is unraveling why did these things happen to him, and what does this mean for him. So I think it's the first sequence is really about setting up the mystery
Mm-hmm.
and establishing him on his hero's journey and also on his adventure in this new magic school. If you think of things like, I'm a fan of Harry Potter and Name of the Wind,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's more Name of the Wind than Harry Potter, but it begins, he's then enrolled into the magic school, and you follow his adventures through class, and you get to go to class to learn about the magic system and the math and the science. So it's the setup of the hero's adventure.
Okay. So who are the crafters, and what is their role kind of in the community?
The It's almost like a medieval society, but with some infusions of technology. So while in the first book it focuses on Brecken and his journey, what
Mhm.
you find out later is that technology has been suppressed for thousands of years. So instead of being able to advance, through the typical I guess evolutions of technology and the manufactural revolutions and so on, that's all been suppressed. There are some teams that still do this in secret. They're practicing using steam technology and engines and motors, but really it's about the time period where technology is still limited, and you know what, I started rambling and I lost track of where I was going with that one.
Well, it's so, I mean, you're, telling us who the crafters were and what their
Okay.
function was. So we get this idea that they kind of um, contribute to the overall good, the well-being, or keep things together
Yes,
with
okay.
their use of technology.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Thank you. I started rambling about technology. So the role of the crafters, a portion of the population is what they call gifted and able to tap into pulling energy from different parts of we use the multiverse. If you think of like the Marvel universe and Doctor
Mhm.
Strange. So the crafter community, they have like a school in which they kind of center themselves around, and Skyview Tower is the command center of that school. You're introduced to a few major characters: Master Erebor,
Mhm.
Quinn, Master Rufus, and a few of the bad guys and gals that have become the enemies of the story. But yeah, so their roles really as teachers, and they do healing arts. They do other things for the city. But in my mind, the city is set up a little bit like Game of Thrones style, where like maybe even the Maesters, how they are just one small faction of the organization, but I wouldn't say they're always the focal point of
Mhm.
all of the society.
So with Brecken now, like, I guess in the process of becoming this, and discovering his gift and how to use it, and you know, um, and on that hero's journey where he's becoming really a hero. Um, what does this new connection to the Free Academy of Magic, which I like the name of the school. The Free Academy of Magic mean for him, and what's at stake at this point, um, for him as well as his community. What's his stake with his joining this Free Academy of Magic?
Yeah. So the in the background of the book, you start hearing rumblings of what's going on outside of the school, and it goes back again into information suppression. So the main bad guy is called the Undying King, who for somehow has not has survived over the past several centuries. There's a lot of mystery wrapped up in that person. They actually don't know if it's the same person or a dynasty, um, but there's a lot going on in the background where you find out that the Undying King has actually taken control over every major city in the realm. And if you think about it, the realm is really mirrored after medieval the United Kingdom. So there's the kind of the Ireland and then the UK and Wales, and a lot of the locations in the story are based in Wales. So if that's the geography, and the Undying King has taken over most of those major cities and academies, and begun a campaign to kind of I guess influence the next magical generation. So in my mind, I guess I'll talk Harry Potter language. It's as if Voldemort had came and kind of taken over all the schools across the realm and indoctrinated students into the dark arts.
Okay.
So there is a bit of that going in the background, but Brecken doesn't even know that yet. So Castlestone is the last free city. It has not been taken over by the Undying King. So the attack by the dragons, many fear that this is the start of when the king is going to come full force and to take over their city.
So again, this is a series. So this is, again, National Reading and National Literacy Month. For those who will watch the replay later or catch it at some point in time, this is National Reading and Literacy Month. So nothing better than to pick up a great new book. And we thank Myles Wagner for giving us Castlestone, Ascension, which is book one in the series of the saga. So when did you know that this was not just going to be a one book deal, but it was going to be a full out series that there are possibly there 8 titles that will unfold in this series?
Yes, it's maybe 6 to 8. So I think I'm a planner. I think that I've heard some writers call themselves gardeners or pantsers, where they kind of run by the seat of their pants. But what I've tried to do is map out like the beginning and the end. I say, okay, we're setting up this mystery, and here's where it starts, and here's the end, and then how am I going to get there? And then I put that all out into like an Excel document, and then I did the main characters that you've met now, and then some that you haven't met, and I do their main things that happen, and then I try to say, well, how long will it take me to get there? So I've kind of in my head mapped out at least 6 books on that journey. So while the first one focuses on Brecken, the next one focuses on the connection, is really more about the dragon and Brecken and that connection. And then following ones, they kind of progress down this evolution. So in theory, Brecken awakens to power, kind of like leveling up. If as you study, you acquire new skills. So in the first level, the main generation is able to see magic at a fundamental level, and they can see the color yellow. So all magic is visualized in yellow. What you later find out that there is a very small portion of the crafters that can actually see the next level, and that's a smaller portion. And say there's maybe only 50 of those people in the entire realm that have either unlocked or been attributed with that ability. And you find out later that there are other levels that have been choked off by the Undying King. So thousands and thousands of years ago, all crafters had the ability to rise to different levels, but that has been choked off by the Undying King, and people in this generation don't even know that yet.
Wow, it's like modern day banning, or censoring, so to speak.
Yes, energy crisis.
Yeah. And so with um with this being, the first in the series, and you said with this first one focusing on Brecken, and the next, kind of focusing, on the dragon, how will we see readers see Brecken's character develop through the series? Because we start out seeing him as a, you know, fearing for his life, so to speak, kind of getting caught in the mix of things, just because of where he was at the time where he was. So, how do we see him really? How will readers see him develop as a character over the series?
Yeah, so before Brecken inherits his abilities, he's kind of a science guy. He was studying like a PhD in what modern day would be like a biology type background. So in the beginning, he's very timid. He's a new guy, and he is unsure of himself. And you see a lot of fear as he undergo. As he, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the processing of trauma. So when
Mm-hmm.
the dragon attack, he saw many people die. He'd never seen that kind of thing before. So throughout the book, he's processing this trauma, and also he is one of the taglines of the book. It reads, "A power awakened, a shadow within, a promise forgotten." So when he ascends to his power, he then is attached to something, what we'll call a shadow. And throughout the book, the shadow is like a malevolent force inside his mind, and so he's grappling with this thing he's scared to talk about, he doesn't want to come off crazy. So the first part is him kind of coming into his own, making friends at school, grappling with this shadow. And then the next parts move into him kind of becoming aware that he has abilities that exceed even what his teachers at school. And I think and coming into that, it almost reminds me of a little bit of like the hero journey of like Superman. As a child, he realizes he's different, and then now he has these superpowers, and how does he use those powers for good? So that's a part of it. But then also, I think later on in the series, we start to rebel against the Undying King, and he becomes a focal point in that battle. And he brings in different races that have not yet really been talked too much about. But I will focus on the dragons. So the Undying King has managed somehow to enslave dragonkind
Mm-hmm.
and use them for his own evil purposes. So in the next book or two, Brecken really becomes, on a journey to partner with the dragonkind and help them be liberated. So I think that's something I'm really looking to diving into right now. It's only in outline form, but to
Mm-hmm.
fleshing out like the Dragon Society and the hierarchy structure and how they're distrustful of humans and crafters, and how Brecken can somehow um, um, help that group.
Okay, so without giving the whole story away, because we want our readers and viewers to go out to, on to their favorite um, bookstore or online retailer and grab Castlestone Ascension, the Dragon's Promise Saga Book 1. So we want them to grab it, but without giving the whole story away, what's the underlying premise behind the book?
The story's about Brecken kind of awakening to a power, but then it's really about uncovering a mystery of ages and how society reacted to the Undying King and the suppression of information and power and persecution of liberties. So it's really about how does society kind of rebel against evil and kind of come together and fight the bad guy.
And so, with this again being the first in the series, typically when you're reading a series, you develop a relationship to the characters. You connect to the setting and the plot and um, all of those kinds of things. Will we see kind of a continuity with the characters? Within the books, or will we see kind of a dramatic drop off of certain characters, um, that kind of thing? So, will we see familiar characters, throughout the series, or will we see kind of a falling off at some point of some of our beloved characters?
Good question. I think I'll try to mirror some of the style of Harry Potter, where there's like a core cast of characters that you follow throughout the series, um, and then you'll be introduced to more background characters. Every time Brecken goes to a new city, I have him meet a group of crafters, and actually I'm trying to pay homage to some and put Easter eggs in the book. So every time he goes to a new city, you will encounter a cast of characters that might be modeled after some of my own favorite characters, either in literature or in television. And so, so yeah, you'll have a main cast, but you'll see others come
Mhm.
through, and hopefully you'll get some chuckles and smiles as references are made to other great works of
Mhm.
literature.
So, what are some of the, I guess, themes that really stood out to you with this particular book? I know you mentioned, you know, dealing with trauma, and that's something I think lot of people can relate to is their experience of trauma at a young age and what that feels like, what it looks like. So, what are some other themes that are lifted up in this particular first book?
In the first book, I think it's coming of age and finding yourself and how you fit in the world. And throughout the rest of the series is how do you find your place in a greater society, and how do you make the world a better place?
And so those are definitely kind of thought provoking and self reflective, questions, that, readers can connect to and, will, find themselves maybe journaling and reflecting about their own, journey through, discovering of self and what they want to be when they grow up or what do we want to major in or what can I do to make a difference in my community, those kinds of things. So thank you for highlighting those themes. So we'll be looking for those as along the way as we read, continue to read throughout the series. um, how have you been able to kind of maintain consistency with, I know you spoke of using an Excel spreadsheet in your, kind of in your planning. So how have you been able to maintain consistency with what the actual world looks like, in book one, or what it will become, as to whether are there changes, in what the world looks like between, books within the series, or is there like a consistency, in its shape and form?
I think so. I'm trying to use consistency around locations.
Mm,
I think I mentioned in my bio that I got the chance to travel to the UK. I visited maybe 40 castle ruins over the past 5-10 years, and so the books are really based on those locations. I've hundreds of pictures, and I've got to tour those sites and walk around, and I touch every rock I can and try to feel history. So I think the consistency will be based around the locations and the castles that he visits, and he finds a certain artifact in each castle. So it'll be based on going to these different places and uncovering, unlocking, discovering the secrets of each castle and how they tie into the greater mystery. And then from a mechanical point of view, from the writing, what I try to do is do a lot of foreshadowing as much as I can and Easter eggs.
mhm.
So if you think about how I chose to approach it was I basically took like the 10 main characters and plotted them in columns in Excel,
Yeah.
and then I put kind of dates along the rows, and I said, okay, this happens in this month, and then I kind of walk through each character and how they might respond to it. Sometimes characters get chapters, sometimes they don't, but what I
Mhm.
try to do is make sure that I take each major event and then I talk about it from different viewpoints. So the book is actually modeled after um, you know uh, Game of Thrones, where like
Mhm.
each chapter is like labeled with a name. So oftentimes you'll be seeing or hearing about the same event, but from different perspectives. So in the document, that's kind of how I laid out the book and try to keep it consistent. I'll say, this time period, and this person reacts this way, this way, this way, and then this happens. And I try to give hints to things that happen earlier on. So I know a big event is coming in the future. I will try to go back and weave it into different parts of different people's story to kind of foreshadow it. Um, so that's how I try to keep it consistent. If that's kind of what you were looking for.
Okay. So with this series being about 6 to 8 books, do you plan to take a break between writing in the series to maybe do like, you know, another kind of singular project writing, explore another genre, or you're, solely focused on, okay, I'm going to finish the series and then maybe move into something else?
That's a great question. I think so. I'm a new author. I haven't ever
Mhm.
really sat down and tried to write something except for in the past year, and most of my writing has been emails and PowerPoints in the past 20 years. So sitting down and write like a lengthy book was quite a challenge.
Mhm.
Um, so what I think I'm doing now is uh, I'm about a third of the way through the second book. I finished the book right before Christmas. I was trying to publish it as I could give it for a present for my wife. So I actually published it before I went through the copy editor process, just to give a physical copy on Christmas. And then after that, I had an editor go back and correct it, and she made it so much better. So I'm very grateful for Laura. I found her through Readsy as
Mhm.
a copy editor, and she's done a great job. And so that version is out there published now. But you asked about what would I do as another series. I really wanted my kids to get involved in the book.
Mhm.
So I kind of wrote this as like a legacy for them. So if something ever happened one day, at least there's, hey, they'll always have this. Like Dad did this work, and I've tried to hide stories of from me and my wife and how we met and in the book itself. So it's almost like a pseudo history of our relationship. The next book has more of it in there, but 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 going back to the kids, they didn't get as excited about it as I had hoped. I mean, they're all under 12, right? So we're actually going to take a long car ride, and I'm going to try to put it on over have it read to us while we're going to see what they think, because they've only seen parts of it. But in that vein, Monica, I'm thinking that I really like to get them more involved. So
Mhm.
what I might actually do is take a break from the 6 book series and then write a book with each child, and almost like Dungeons and Dragons style, where I might like
Mhm.
lay out an overall plot, but then let them get to pick what happens or how does the character respond. So I'd say like, you know, right now it's looking like, so you might see some dragon eggs up there. I think I'm going to build it in the same universe, but
Mhm.
in a time before the Undying King became immortal, and I'm going to have their series end at a crucial element that sets up the Undying King. But what I think I'm going to do is have each of my kids inherit, find whatever, a dragon egg, and then I'm going to navigate them with, growing up with the dragon and bonding to the dragon in their own book. So I might do something like where I say, oh, you find a dragon egg, and what's the first thing you do with it? And then they'll tell me, and I'll write it down, and then I'll build that into the story so that they get to co-author it.
That is amazing. And it's almost like the choose your own adventure.
Right. Yeah. Well, you jump to
Like,
page 43. Yeah.
yeah, like if you choose this way, jump to page, like 23, 27, and then your choice could have you go into different directions. So that is a great and beautiful legacy to leave for your children, that they'll be co-authors and have a book on the library shelf or in a bookstore that has their name on it. So
Yep.
that's a wonderful gift. That is a beautiful gift. So you got your first um, book under your belt. Um, how has that, what's that feeling like? With the feeling of it's out there, it's in print, um, and how do you feel having, okay, something that you've worked for a period of time. Maybe it took several years. Maybe it just took a few months, or however long it took that you've dedicated yourself to this work of writing and developing the framework, the worlds, the characters feelings and emotions, and you got this you know, the themes and all of the things you wanted to do, and now it's out there in the world. So, How have you been processing that, and are you enjoying the journey of this, new author feel?
Well, I feel kind of two things. First, proud. This was a bucket list for me, and there are many reasons why I wrote the book, to honor some friends, and but also to leave the legacy. But also scared. I think so. I'm using a pen name, and I haven't told a lot of people. I've told maybe my closest friends about it, but it's a pretty vulnerable thing to put something out
Mhm.
there that you care so much about and hear how people react to it. So, luckily, so far, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. It's on Amazon now, and I think I have like, I don't know, something like 60 reviews. I think there's like 4.7 stars. So that made me feel pretty good that people are reacting well to the story. But it is still kind of scary to think that people could pick it up and they either love it or they could hate it. So I guess it's a little bit scary too.
Mhm. So, do you feel like you found your niche in this genre of fantasy, or are there some other, genres that you think that you might explore in other writings?
I think I'm a fantasy guy, so I love to read too. So I love like the Wheel of Time and Harry Potter. I know you
Mhm.
can't see all my shelves, but I've got my collection of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So I think that's really where I enjoy reading myself, and I've tried to take a lot of the fun things that I've liked how other people have written and done and world built, and I kind of mesh them together into the world of Fiersguard. But yeah, I think I'm going to stay in fantasy.
So, what's something that you hope, one or two things that you hope readers will take away from reading Castlestone Ascension, Dragon's Promise Saga Book One?
I think one thing I hope is to renew interest of reading for different audiences. So me, like coming out of high school and college, I didn't like to read. I didn't like it. I guess I was so like book oriented at school. Like you have to read pages one through ever, do an outline and homework. But I was kind of just burned out from reading. And then it wasn't until the Harry Potter series came and everybody was talking about it. I was a grown man. I was like 20 something at the time, but everybody was talking about Harry Potter, and so I'm like, fine, I'm gonna read this book, and I was a little bit embarrassed at the time to pick up a children's book, but I found that I loved it, and I got back into it, and then I started reading like crazy. I read the Wheel of Time series, I read the Dune series, I read Ender's Game, I read a lot of sci-fi fantasy, I read all the Michael Crichton books, and then so it really
Mhm.
rekindled my love of reading. So what I'm hopeful is that mixing and mashing like ideas from Harry Potter, Wheel of Time, and Game of Thrones, a PG version of Game of Thrones. My book is not that violent, but the idea of political factions and mysteries and how it all weaves together. I'm hoping that it attracts people who don't typically like to read to come
Mhm.
back to reading and give it a shot.
All right. So, um, and we can tell by your shelf that you're an avid reader, and so we hope to encourage others. You've got book clubs, you've got schools have book clubs for students, so definitely promoting reading and encouraging reading of things of interest, things that you connect to, things um that cause you to wonder and dive into. So I believe that definitely you found your niche in the realm of fantasy, and we look forward to seeing the build out of the rest of the series. Were there any, particular authors that you went to or you looked at as in terms of structure, a structure model, or how they use language and setting when you were developing your own book?
Great question, Monica. And I felt that one coming. So I'm going to do a pitch for my favorite books. Name of the Wind. This is my all-time favorite book. It's rated, I'd say, PG 13, and it's a more adult version of Harry Potter. It's a trilogy. There are two books out now. I love this guy. I love his writing style. If I could grow be a great writer, I'd like to be like Patrick Rothfuss. Yeah. So my other books, I think I love the Game of Thrones series. It's a little bit too graphic and violent for my to be my all-time favorite, but I do like the series of Dragons and Magic and Rekindling. Tad Williams, another one of my favorite authors, Dragonbone Chair. I like how they use different races. Over here, I got my Wheel of Time book. I think this has been made popular on the Netflix series. So if you haven't read it, but it's a on my shelf. I mean, it takes up like this much space, so it's a pretty lengthy series. But yeah, I love the Wheel of Time and Robert Jordan. Other ones I have over here are the Mistborn series with Brandon Sanderson. Love those series. And then Harry Potter. Here's some other one of my recent favorites. Prior of the Orange Tree. This one came out maybe a few years ago. This was a great book. James Islington, The Shadow of What Was Lost, Lacanius trilogy, great book. So I drew a lot of inspiration from all these different players and fans. But again, I love to read, and I think I'm very lucky to have all these famous authors and great inspiration.
So now you have joined the ranks of the authors that you've loved to read. You joined the ranks of authors. So how can our viewers and those who will watch buy replay purchase this book in this first book of the series and connect with you on any social media that you have going
Yeah.
on?
So you could buy, I think this one right now, Castlestone Ascension. It's available on Amazon. If you have the Kindle Unlimited, I think it's for free for Kindle Unlimited. So if you wanted to peek at that, I think if you go on Amazon too, I think you can get the first like 10 or so chapters downloadable for free. See if you can get into the story. I think in the future, I'm going to try to do an audiobook, but I want to see how this first round goes. It was really only released in December, and we're doing the official like relaunch. Actually, today is St. Patrick's Day, and starting tomorrow is the official relaunch of my grown-up copy editor version, where they picked it apart and helped me make it even better. So this is my first marketing blitz campaign.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that. So know that you can go out there to Amazon and pick up Castlestone Ascension, book one in the Dragon's Promise, in this series, this saga, this thing that's going to be absolutely epic in this National Literacy Month, National Reading Month. And we'll say happy St. Patrick's Day to all of friends and family in the UK. I'm saying happy St. Patrick's Day to cousins and friends and across the waters, those Baileys and Cockrams, those Scotch-Irish persons in family who are celebrating today. Not quite fully green, but this is a shade of green. So happy St. Patrick's Day. And as you're out celebrating, why not pick up a book in celebration? Go to your local favorite bookstore, independent bookstore, your library, if it's opened on Sunday afternoons, your public library. And if it's not on the shelves, ask for it. All you have to do is make an ask, and you get enough people asking about a book, they'll get it and put it on the shelves. That's what we do in the library world. You ask for something that we don't have, we're going to get it and make sure it's available to our constituents. So we are so thankful, Myles, that you were able to join us on today here on the far side. We thank you for spending this time with us and wish you continued success with Castlestone Ascension, The Dragon's Promise, and all of the wonderful projects to come, especially as you finish out this series. So for our audience, make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Co-Ed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate National Reading and National Literacy Month during the month of March. So until next time, many roots, many voices are part of the infinite story. So plant your seed and have a great and wonderful day.
Thank you, Monica. Have a good one. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you.